Now, February, thanks to Valentine's Day, is the month where we celebrate love. But how much has the Me Too era affected the world of dating these days? And are we still sticking to those same stereotypes when it's up to the men to pursue women? Or does being a feminist well and truly hinder your chances when it comes to dating? Nichi Hodgson is a British journalist who's written a book appropriately entitled The Curious History of Dating from Jane Austen to Tinder. Nichi, thank you so much for being with us. Digital technology has turned the world of dating upside down, but has it had a destructive influence?
Well, if you talk anecdotally to people, they certainly seem to be struggling to find long-term love. But at the same time, dating apps have never been more popular. The industry is worth billions of pounds now internationally. And, it's kind of impossible to believe that Tinder only burst onto the scene 5 years ago. It's really changed the way that we meet and couple up permanently.
But dating apps have a tendency of turning people into commodities, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I've consulted for a few dating apps, and what I found is that to some extent they were rather like the diet industry, not the positive health and wellness industry that we're seeing emerge out of that, but the old-fashioned diet industry, where they give you a promise of something they're going to deliver for you. And as long as you stick with their program, you might see short-term results. But long-lasting results are very hard to come by. And more importantly, they don't want long-lasting results from you because then they lose you as a customer. So I think bearing that in mind, you've got to understand that when you're using one of these apps, the house is set up to win and your chances of finding love are actually quite remote. But there are some things you can do to circumvent the situation, the tricks that they try to use to lure you into reusing the app, even when you found somebody that you might really like dating. And if you employ those, then you can definitely have success. I actually met my fiance on an app, so I wouldn't say that they're absolutely a waste of time.
Now, you have argued that being a feminist is far from being a hindrance when women date.
Yeah, I mean, increasingly so. We see women being able to have a far greater range of relationship choices ahead of them. So we know that marriage rates are down in the Western world, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. People are still coupling up, but they're having children at different ages that suit them, where they can accommodate a career as well as child raising. And, they have greater options in terms of the kinds of relationships they can have, casual relationships, mixed race relationships, all these things are on the up. And these are all good things for women because, traditionally, it's kind of almost impossible to remember, but in fairly recent history, women really were curtailed according to their relationship choices. And what I discovered in writing the book throughout history is that when women's rights change, their legal rights, then their dating options increase.
So what you're saying is that digital technology, and particularly dating apps, have actually empowered women.
I think so, yes, because there are so many more options available to people in the kinds of people they can date than ever before. And we're not expected to just get married by the age of 21 and get on with having children anymore. And dating apps fully accept that. They fully accept women's autonomy. The problem is that men, as always in these situations, tend to fall a little bit behind, and it takes them a few years to do some catching up when they have to get to grips with the fact that women have moved on. They want different things out of their relationships, and, they need to keep up to speed in order to satisfy them.
So with that in mind, how has the Me Too campaign changed the world of dating?
Well, I think the Me Too campaign has really had an inestimable positive effect on dating. We hear so much in the press about men feeling afraid to flirt and not knowing the best way to approach someone anymore as a result of it. But it was high time that men had to reassess how they went about flirting with people. And if that encourages some more reflection and some better manners on the part of men, then that's all for the good. And I think it's definitely increased women's sense of self-worth, what kind of behaviour they should tolerate and what they shouldn't, and the right to that behaviour.
So when you look back at history, Nichi, was there ever a golden era in dating?
That's a really good question. I think actually the Regency period in England was a very good time to date because that was when people started to use personal adverts to contact one another, actually far earlier than we would presume. And what was so good about it is that the Regency ladies and gentlemen dating used very frank messaging to indicate what they were willing to tolerate in a relationship. And they would state how much money they needed a year to live on and where they would like to live. and then they took it from there. And what I took from learning about that period was that the more direct you are about what you want, the better your chances of getting it in the long term, which is really at odds with how we are dating today. You know, we hide our feelings, we hide our needs, we hide our wants, and that is partly why we're not having so much success anymore.
So we should be taking lessons from Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet.
Yeah, definitely. I think so.
Nichi Hodgson, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.